everyone. I'm going to go ahead and continue with our program. And as following the panel, I have representatives from all 4 of the universities within the statewide academic cybersecurity alliance. And up first is Mitch Kajzer. He's a managing director of Cybercrimes Investigations Research and Education Initiative with the University of Notre Dame. And I will give you a heads up. He might talk fast because he says he's never given a mere 10-minute talk before.
All right. Yeah. When Sean said wanted to give a 10-minute talk, I thought I have never only spoken for 10 minutes. So we'll see how this goes. First, I kind of struggled with the title of this, Collaborative Proactive Incident Response. Incident response indicates it is something reactive. We're reacting to something, but it's proactive. So proactive, reactive. So explain what that means here. So just a little bit about me. I'm a professor at Notre Dame. I work out of the Center for Research Computing in this new initiative, CIRE, Cybercrimes Investigation, Research, and Education. We just started this initiative 9 months ago now, so it's brand new. I'm also the executive director of the St. Joseph County Cybercrimes unit in St. Joseph County. And that's a program where we have actually 20 Notre Dame students and 1 Purdue student working, doing digital forensics and law enforcement and defense investigations for, I think right now we have close to 80 police agencies and defense agencies that we work with. So it's students doing that. This CIRE initiative is 3 parts. Investigations, which is the cybercrimes unit of doing all the digital forensics work. Research, a little bit atypical type of research, different from the normal academia research. We do very short-term applied research projects where we identify some sort of specific issue, formulate some way to solve that, and then implement a solution on it. An example of that, when iOS 16 came out, there were all kinds of changes with sending, unsending messages, deleting messages, so a lot of research related to that. And then education, really kind of wrapping up the cyber presence at Notre Dame with academic courses, a lot of training courses for law enforcement, for prosecutors, for defense attorneys, and for the public sector. We do lots of talks and presentations. So we all know that in order to really effectively address the cybercrime issue, we need collaboration. That's what this conference is about, between industry, private sector, academia, law enforcement, and there's strategy after strategy that says this is what we need to do to address this. And that's what this project is, of proactive incident response investigation. We're thinking, how can we proactively address these issues instead of just waiting, being notified when someone gets compromised and then doing a reactive investigation. So we partnered with Magnet Forensics in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. Our government partner is the St. Joseph County Cybercrimes Unit, which is an easy one since we're pretty much close to the same thing, and then Notre Dame. And here's how we implemented this. This map here, Magnet Forensics wrote this custom interface where 10 different threat feeds are being monitored. When it finds an indicator of compromise or an indicator of attack on an IP address, it does a few basic searches and then plots them on a map. And we can go in and look in our area here. So this screenshot here, we've identified a computer in South Bend, Indiana, based on the IP address and some of the additional information they provide, that it's not a mobile IP, it's not a proxy server, it's not a data center, and then they do a reverse lookup. Based on that, we then do open source intelligence searches on it. In this case, a hash value of malware was identified on that IP address. We continue doing OSINT searches and found that that hash is associated with the malware nanocore, that it was uploaded one time to this server and downloaded or sent to other computers 196 times. So we trace that, and then here's where the law enforcement part comes into. Based on that intelligence, we write a search warrant to do a search on that server. We're not taking their server or anything. We're just responding to it and doing certain things, getting live PCAP, packet capture for 5 minutes, which is like a gold mine. If you have a compromised server still online, it can get a packet capture of it. And then stuff like RAM, volatile data, log files, firewall files. So we responded there. We executed this search warrant on the server. Ironically, this was our first case that we did this. The server was a St. Joseph County government server that we identified. When we got there and I started the basic questions with the guy who's in charge of the server, the first thing is, do you know what operating system's on the server? He's like, yeah, it's Windows Server 2003. And I paused and I'm like, you know, that's from 20 years ago, right? He's like, yeah. It's like, there haven't been patches for it for, I think, 8 or 9 years. I'm like, yeah, we haven't patched it. I'm like, is it any surprise that you're infected? But we serve this search warrant. Here's how we serve them. Our cybercrimes unit is Notre Dame students. I always tell them when we are, I refer to it as outside the wire. When we're in a law enforcement capacity, stepping away from campus somewhere, we always prepare for the worst. So they're wearing body armor. I wear my raid vest. We went out, made contact with the owner and the server. They did their thing, extracted data off of the server. At them smiling. We come back and start analyzing the information and analyzing the PCAP on it. Ended up determining, you know, they had no idea they were infected. Found, in addition to that one, probably 4 or 5 other infections on the server. Found a lot of lateral movement within the network that it went to other servers that they're now working on fixing. And then the PCAP. I was asked, why 5 minutes of PCAP? And my response was, I don't know. 5 minutes just seems like a good amount of time. In 5 minutes of PCAP, we got close to 250,000 packet captures. And this was at 6 in the morning, and this server shouldn't have been doing anything. And we mapped it in the 5 minutes we grabbed the PCAP. Those are locations that data was sent to from that server that it was communicating with. It was infected with the Trojan. It was also hijacked as a crypto miner computer and communicating with over 100 external IP addresses. So this was the first case we did like this. We have done several since then. We don't always serve a search warrant. We had one for a very large consulting firm of a compromise on one. I don't even want to open up that can of worms of showing up at their place with a search warrant, saying it was search server. Showed up there, talked to them, showed them, here's what we determined, and said you need to get it taken care of on your server. And that's why their actually general counsel made this comment that they had no idea we're even doing anything proactive like that. So this is one way that we're trying to proactively address cyber issues. And a great benefit to it, those students that are doing it, they are getting this real world case experience to go with their education where they're actually doing these investigations. So that is very, very helpful once they are going on to the job market. How did they do?
You did fantastic. Awesome. Thank you very much, Mitch. And now I'm going to introduce so if you see him later today, tell him what a great job I did. This is my manager, Joel Rasmus. He's a managing director of CERIAS. He also is not used to talking only 10 minutes. So I'm glad to put you guys back to back. Great job. Take it away, Joel.
Thank you, Sean. By the way, everybody, Sean, I had to kind of tell her she was required to do the last panel, and she was very nervous about it, but I don't think it came across as such. You did a great job, Sean. I want everybody to know that. Okay, so Sean is right in that I rarely can keep my comments to 10 minutes. I'm going to try my best here. I enjoyed the last panel with the 4 people from industry talking about their engagement from their perspective. I'm glad that the 4 universities have our opportunities to pilot as well. Purdue is the very first university I work for. Oh, it's automatically. Okay, so this is the first university I worked for. So I was used to working at the speed of industry as well before I got here, and we try to continue to do that. So most university engagement comes in one of these areas: research, talent acquisition. By the way, and there are multiple avenues down each of these, but talent acquisition, that you guys looking to hire our bright students, because maybe nobody has heard, but there's a shortage of cybersecurity talent. Proposal teaming, whether the university is the prime and the commercial industry is the supporter, or the other way around. Man, you guys. Okay, workforce development, training, education, or influence. So I'm going to talk about 2, perhaps 3, if I'm fast enough on some of these here. All right, so the first one is about an idea that came up with a conversation that I had with Boeing, where they said, hey, we'll hire all your cybersecurity students. We're going to hire all your aero engineering students. But you know what? None of your aero engineering students seem to know anything about cyber, and none of your cyber students need to know anything about aero engineering. So we took, right on time. So we took us 5 to 7 students out of these multiple disciplines, put them all together. Boeing, in this case, sponsored a problem, gave them an idea, and said, all right, try to figure this out for us this year. Josh, who's in the audience right here, Josh, right here, thank you, very good, from Boeing, served as the team mentor. Sean, will you come and operate this thing for me so that it doesn't keep advancing on me? All right, so put them together, gave them a problem. Josh meets them once a week to keep them on task. They are working. So the big thing from this is we really don't think that they're going to solve all the problems in the cyber aviation industry, but we do think that we're going to develop talent who is ready to solve those problems. So the cybersecurity students are teaching the aero engineers, and the aero engineers are teaching the cyber students, so that they're both better educated to work across disciplines, so that you don't have to hire them and then train them for a year before they actually start delivering value. All right, so we talked about this and said, well, why can't we do this for space? As many of you know, Purdue has one of the world's preeminent astro and aero. So why not the astro side as well? So we've gone that way. Well, as you see, it's cyber plus X. So we're already now talking about cyber and nuclear engineering, because our nuclear engineering students don't know a whole lot about cyber either, and vice versa. So we're putting these teams together. Oh, yeah, this is a failure. It's a good thing you didn't do this. I'd had to put this in your review. So, but you're fair to tell me. So the next one is research assistantships. And this is a thing that came out originally with Lockheed Martin, that we took a list of topics that Lockheed Martin was very, very interested in, and said, hey, can't you get some great, bright students to work on some of these problems for us? And so they gave us the idea. We blasted it all out to all of our graduate students, said, hey, if you'd like to get funded next year, let me know. If you've got really great ideas. We had them write 1,000 words, so about 1 page. And then we previewed, I think you're in the wrong one here. You know what? Just turn it off. It's fine. Yeah. So previewed all of the things that, hey, these few here really align with what expertise we'd like to get. So they provided them a mentor. The students then worked all year on the project that they identified they wanted to work on, that Lockheed Martin picked. By the way, Lockheed Martin is restricted to only hiring U.S. citizens. So we only had U.S. students apply for this citizenship. Deep into the year, Lockheed said, man, they're all doing fantastic. We'd like them all come. So they were all offered internships. They all went on internships. This was 10. They all went on internships. At the end of the summer, they say, we want to hire all 10. We want to hire all 10. I can tell you, before writing their 1,000 words, hoping that Lockheed Martin would fund their year of their master's program. And by the way, we're talking about $20,000 for a graduate student at Purdue to work on your problem for an entire year. Unbelievable inexpensive. They were all offered jobs. One student said, no, I want to become a professor. So didn't take the job. One went to a direct competitor of Lockheed Martin, but I forecasted that. because the father of this student worked at a competitor, but 8 of them all accepted jobs with Lockheed Martin. Oh, good. I have a couple more minutes, right? Yeah, a couple more. Okay, great. The last one is a project that we did with Sandia National Laboratory, Department of Energy National Laboratory. So we were doing some research, and inside the classified facility at Sandia National Labs, they have a mini mega and a large cluster that is an emulytics platform. That's emulation and analytics. It's a very large cyber range. More than 100,000 endpoints can be emulated. And so we were doing some research. We had to pack it up, physically hand it to them. They would take it back, put it on their lab platform, the cyber range, and run the experimentation to say, looks good, or hold on, we had one really minor problem. And they said, let's shorten this. They took what was a $10 million development and placed the duplicate, the clone of it, here at Purdue. And they said, we know we're not going to keep it completely busy. So anytime that you're not using it, if you, since it was taxpayer money that developed it, if you want to do it to anything that helps contribute towards national cybersecurity, national security, go right at it. We'll, and by their own definition, said pretty much anything cybersecurity can be applied to national security. So, you know, unless you have a real question, unless Huawei asked you to use this for something, you're probably okay to use this for working on one of a project. So not only did it make our research for Sandia shorten and more on point for them, but it allowed them to give us resources that we're now using with a number of our strategic partners. That is, I mean, this is high horsepower to be able to do real high-end, high fidelity, at scale emulations for cybersecurity. So on time.
Thank you, Joel. Again, I'm very impressed. And up now, hold on, I forgot my trusty cheater card here. Dr. Feng Li, he is the chair of the Department of Computer Information and Graphics Technology at IUPUI. You're mic'd up, right? Okay, beautiful. Great, take it away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Sean, you did not give me enough time to switch from one computer to the next.
Great. Thank you, Sean, and very glad to be here. And for us, we really won't use 10 minutes because for IUPUI, it has a pretty special status there. It kind of is a joint campus of both IU and Purdue, and we actually benefit a lot from that. Many of our engagement activities are actually through CERIAS and also CACR Center at IU. So I think many of the discussions cover some of our activities there. And it was also interesting that I just discovered that Mitch was talking about Notre Dame's this cybercrime unit there. We actually visited Mitch a year ago, and for us, we actually engagement activity at IUPUI also. We worked with IUPD, Marion County Prosecutor's Office. We exactly modeled after Notre Dame's model, and now we have 4 of our student interns working on digital forensics cases for the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. So we actually benefit a lot from all these nice engagement activities from these different organizations there. Here, this is Industry Advisory Board. Being an urban university, so for IUPUI, one of the unique advantage we have is we are in an urban setting. We are close to many of the companies. Like Rick mentioned, we are close to Infosys and many others. So we work closely with them, not just on research and education activities. We also work closely with them on curriculum development and the curriculum revision. So we hear their need in cybersecurity, and that's why we, for degree programs, we actually have this cybersecurity in our degree program names, and we took lots of the curriculum advice from our industry partners. So for example, this is just 2 years ago, we built this BS in cybersecurity. And our goal the curriculum setting, the courses, we want to answer some of the need for our industry partners. So we want to put cybersecurity closely to things like software development and data analysis there. And also we have a MS in cybersecurity and trust, build similar manner there. And this one, we also made the connections of these different areas of this CS and IT together with the cybersecurity area. We have a cybersecurity club. This club at IUPUI benefit a lot from our industry engagement. So I think Rick from Infosys, he actually delivered cybersecurity talk to that cybersecurity club there, and we've visited many of these industry partners for their cybersecurity operation there. Like MISO is an industry partner that is very close to us. So our club actually did their cybersecurity situation room for several times there. So this is a very active club, and this club also benefit from CERIAS activities, like the CERIAS seminars is one of the things that this club watch every week there. So another thing that is related to our this cybersecurity engagement is that last year we received a pretty major grant from National Science Foundation. The goal of this grant is to increase the diversity of cybersecurity engineering professionals. And so we using this grant to support our cybersecurity student. So they will receive pretty significant and support from this grant. So they don't need to worry about how they will provide financial support for their own study. At the same time, this one require internship experience. So that's where we're working with our industry partners there also to see how we can engage these students early in the cybersecurity internships. Like one of the things we discussed with Rick on with Infosys is whether we can get our sophomore student, second-year student already find a cybersecurity related internship, and so they can be prepared for the cybersecurity career early in their work. So actually, for this CyberCorps SFS project, we built it based on the model from our IU friend. So later, when IUCSR are talking about their work, they may mention their SFS grant. And we benefit a lot from learning from their industry engagement experience in this grant. And also, we are very proud partners of both CERIAS and the CCR Center. So actually, our faculty also received this industry engagement opportunities from CERIAS. And we have collaborations on certain projects. For example, IUPUI is also part of, so actually my team is part of the DOE CIMANI project. This is a DOE project that targeted to help to enhance cybersecurity for manufacturers. We're actually working with medium-sized manufacturer in the Indianapolis area. We are implementing many of the cybersecurity protections that is developed in that CIMANI project. We are actually also working with Stonian's group to learn more about their cybersecurity protection in the CIMANI project there. And we also involved in CR industry engagement activities there. So we're very proud of those. So that's it. I think, again, we hope we can strengthen some of those connections with our this location advantage. And if there are industry partners who want to communicate with CERIAS and CACR, also you're welcome to consider us when you are close in the
I'll be honest, I did not expect that we would be early on this. So, Scott, yeah. Joel, would you like a few more minutes? Dr. Scott Shackelford from Indiana University, professor of business law and ethics at the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you so much, Sean. I was about to say, just let the lawyer have some extra time. We can fill it. It's no problem. And thanks for not playing the Imperial March while I was walking up as well. Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? All right. I'm so glad to hear it. First, I just wanted to thank SPAF. I wanted to thank Joel and Sean for all the amazing work they did to put this together. Maybe a quick round of applause for them. It's a lot of work. We really, really appreciate it. As was mentioned, I'm Scott Shackelford. I'm a reform lawyer. I've been in academia now for more than a dozen years, and I wear a few different hats at IU Bloomington. I won't be able to do justice to everything amazing that's happening on cybersecurity front at IU. So what I tried to do is pick out just a couple of the major collaborations that I'm most excited about in hopes that maybe they'll gin up some follow-on conversations during coffee or lunch or however it might be. So first off, as was mentioned, I am the executive director of the Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, or CACR, which has been around for 20 years now. Fred Kate, our vice president for research, was the first founding director. Then Von Welch took it over for about 11 years. I only recently took the helm, and it's involved with a lot of different partnerships across the state, including doing training programs with Crane, compliance work with IU Health, Regenstrief, and a brand new assessment project that we're really excited about with the Indiana Office of Technology and CyberTap here at Purdue. That's a $4 million partnership where we'll be doing more than 300 cybersecurity assessments across Indiana, focusing on local governments over the next 4 years. And we actually played with some code names for this project. The one that won was CyberTrack, like keeping communities on track. The one I loved was Indiana Secure or Insecure. But for some reason, we didn't go with that. You got to inject some humor where you can here, right? I found another good one, guys. After a life of cybercrime, how did the hacker get to heaven? The password hadn't changed in 2,000 years. I know. But happy to chat more about the assessment projects. They're just getting going right now, and we'll hear more about it, I think, maybe from Chetrice in just a little bit as well. We're really excited about that new partnership. On the education and outreach front, I'm the founding chair of IU's Cybersecurity Risk Management Program, which is a tie-up between the Kelley School of Business, Maurer School of Law, and the Letty School of Informatics, Computing, and Engineering. It's only 6 years old, but it's grown pretty quickly. We have more than 100 master's students in that particular program doing all kinds of cool stuff. The idea is to tie together the technical, legal, and business dimensions of cybersecurity under one umbrella. It was IU's first ever triple school master's, so we had no idea where to put it. So it wound up in the graduate school, but it's grown quickly, and we've tried to attach some unique opportunities to it, including a cyber peace internship program that's funded by the Hewlett Foundation and the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, where students go out, work with nonprofits, work with local governments across the state. CyberCore, as Feng kindly mentioned, as well as a new offering for us. We're really excited to be a CyberCore partner school. If any of the other universities, community colleges in attendance are interested in CyberCore, I know Feng and I would love to chat with you about our experiences, maybe what not to do, maybe some best practices along the way as well. And we are thankful to have a lot of different partners, in particular for the cyber program through the capstone projects, which this spring includes EY, ACT-IAC, Microsoft, State of Indiana, and the State Department through their Diplomacy Lab initiative. I also am the director of the Ostrom Workshop, which has been around for 50 years now. And if you haven't heard from it, that's okay. It's pretty nerdy and it's pretty cloistered into certain circles. But if you haven't heard of it, Eleanor Ostrom is pretty famous in some circles because she's the first woman ever to win the Nobel Prize in economics. So this center is named for her. She was a longtime IU professor. And among other things, she found a third way out of the classic tragedy, the Commons Dilemma. So that's all you have to do to win a Nobel Prize for the students in the audience. The research programs at the workshop are varied. They include both environmental and natural resource governance challenges, but for our gathering here, also focus squarely on issues of data governance, right? Critical infrastructure protection, AI governance, Web3, metaverse stuff, you name it. There's more than 20 working groups going, 6 major research programs. There's a new Beyond the Web series that Doc Searles helps to curate for us. A lot of neat speakers coming through. We just had Bruce Schneier on Friday giving his RSA talk, mooting it. So if you're interested, it's all available online. You can check it out. You can zoom in. Of course, you're always welcome in Bloomington as well. So just go to oceanworkshop.indiana to check that out. The workshop is also home to the IU Cybersecurity Clinic. We were excited when this was founded late in 2019. It was the first cybersecurity clinic in the country to focus on critical infrastructure protection, primarily local governments, small utilities, community foundations, even school boards, right? So the students in this clinic are varied. They include law students, MPA students, and the cybersecurity risk management master students. So the idea is to create these interdisciplinary teams. So we just don't have engineers talking to engineers, lawyers talking to lawyers, break down some barriers, build some bridges along the way. So we offer those fall, spring, always looking for new clients in need of help. So let us know if you're interested on the clinic front as well. And as part of the clinic, we were really gratified to launch a new partnership of universities and community colleges across the nation with cybersecurity clinics. We did this with Purdue is hopefully going to be joining soon. We did this with MIT and Berkeley last year, but it's expanding quickly. The website is cybersecurityclinics.org. So for any students who are interested in more applied opportunities, but also faculty who are in attendance and maybe you're interested in launching a cybersecurity clinic or just doing more in terms of service learning or applied offerings at your schools, this website has a ton of resources, but also a lot of really good contacts, folks like Larry Susskind at MIT or Ann Cleveland at Berkeley, who are really pioneers in this space with new schools joining all the time. So we invite you to check that out. Last two for me are at Luddy, the School of Computing and Informatics at IU. We have 2 new awards that I was asked to mention, focusing on cloud infrastructure and a new Center for Distributed Confidential Computing. These are $16 million in new partnerships through Luddy. And if there's any interest in the room on either of those initiatives, I'm very, very happy to make some of those connections as well. And the last partnership I wanted to note is we've really enjoyed working with the Indiana Executive Council on cybersecurity over the years, and Chetrice in particular, who we'll be hearing from next. That started for me back in 2020 when we were asked to do this statewide survey to see how we're doing on as a state on different cybersecurity metrics. So we put together this report called State of Hoosier Cybersecurity 2020. It's available from the Indiana Business Research Center page. And the data was collected right before the pandemic. So we're in the process right now. We're taking survey responses of updating that report to see how cybersecurity practices and attitudes have changed during the pandemic, including on the insurance front. So one of our hypotheses coming in is maybe we reached peak insurance coverage back in 2021, 2022, with rates going up, exclusions widening. We'll see what the data says, right? So we're gathering that data now. If there's any interest in partnering on research projects, et cetera, coming out of that, happy to chat about that, as well as with that IoT project, because there's a lot of interesting data that's going to be accumulated for that from how municipal governance are doing on cybersecurity, right? There's very, very few data sets like that around the country, even around the world. So that's a unique repository that I'd love to chat more about if anybody's interested. So I think that was okay. Did I do okay time-wise? All right, great. So thank you guys so much again for the opportunity, and I'll hang out in case there's any questions or discussion.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
So I alluded to it earlier this morning, but the kind of the background on today's portion of the 2-day event is Scott invited SPAF to come and speak at IU, and then we invited Scott to come and speak at CERIAS here. And we found out that while the schools compete in football, and I've erased everything about basketball out of my mind.
Yeah, it's too soon. It's too soon.
It's still too soon. But we found we were very like-minded, and that the center that Scott runs and CERIAS are very complementary. And so we dreamed up this idea that, you know, some other states who quite honestly don't have universities quite nearly as productive as these 2 universities, and some of our peers also in the state are doing very well by coming up and building their own basic consortium of schools and chasing is like, hey, the state of X would like to go after this. Thought that's a really great idea. We ought to do it. So after a couple of telephone conversations back and forth, Scott, SPAF, and I said, well, let's let's start our own academic alliance in the state of Indiana, and right away reached out to IUPUI, who we both already collaborate with, and then Notre Dame, who also has a very noted cybersecurity program, and said, okay, we're the 4 R1 universities in the state, and then reached out, and we have more than 12 academic institutions from Indiana who are here today. And we're very pleased to have all of them in the room. I am always quick to say, you know, the rankings of Purdue in cybersecurity are exceptional, and we're very, very proud of that. But we do not have a monopoly on good talent or good students. There's great work being done at many, many universities, including across the state of Indiana. So we're very pleased to have all of our partners in the room. And interestingly, most of the universities in the room are also very much involved with Governor Holcomb's Executive Council for Cybersecurity. So Chetrice and I had some brief conversations early, and then she reached out and said, hey, we got this crazy idea of the governor has this crazy idea of putting together an advisory council on cybersecurity, and with all of the talent. And before she could finish, she said, yeah, we're in Chetrice. So since this is an Indiana statewide focused event, we've asked Chetrice Mosley-Romero to come and present briefly on an update on the governor's executive council for cybersecurity. Chetrice.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you guys hear me in the back? Okay. All right. And let me know if I start going in and out. If you ask my husband, I speak just loud enough already. So, all right. So I want to take it from a different perspective, something that we've been focusing on a bit more as we've matured as a state. So what I'm going to talk about is, we always talk about how we need to secure everything, how we need to close everything up. And so I want to kind of take it from the human side of things and talk about being vulnerable in cybersecurity, which in cybersecurity is not a word you typically come across, but I like play on words. Maybe. All right, so we all know the threat, right? The threat's real. We have the breach costs to continue to go up, highest on average on record, even from 2021 models, well into the several $1 million. Personal data is still a consistent breach point. We look at how much it costs every minute on a phishing attack. And while that may not seem like a lot to a large organization, that is everything to a small organization, to our local government when it's our taxpayer money. And, you know, we're looking at 2025 and trillions of dollars when it comes to cybercrime. So this is by no means going away. So for all the students, congratulations, you picked a really lucrative time or lucrative thing to get into. And for all those university professors and organizers, we appreciate you because we know you're getting out the things that need to secure the rest of the world. But when we look at vulnerability and we talk about the various sides of the vulnerability, you know, we always hear about those ransomware attacks and the phishing attacks and the spear phishing and what's next, what are the kind, you know, insider threats. Let's talk more about, you know, all these type of things and all the technology that surrounds every single one, right? But I think it's important, and this is a different aspect of the state perspective, right? Usually a lot of times states come up and we want to talk a lot about the other items, but frankly, talking to people in the room about those items and how we should be secure seems silly and a waste of people's time. But I really do think a lot of the things we are coming across is we have really great tech people who are focused on the technical side of it. And I think when we really start looking at 70 to 80 to 90%, depending on what study you're looking at as being the people are the issue and the way in, then we really have to start changing the way we even talk about cybersecurity in organizations, right? And we've all been hearing that's not a tech problem, it's an operations problem. But I would even go to say it's not an operations problem, it's a people problem. And so when we're looking at being vulnerable and talking about how we change human behavior, that means we have to get into the psyche of human behavior. We have to understand our organization, the people who work for organization, the people we're teaching to learn how to kind of dive into that psychology. So, and you know, vulnerability, I don't know who's here is a Brené Brown fan. I'm a huge Brené Brown fan. So the emotion we experience during times of uncertainty, risks, and emotional exposure. Which is basically like if you're in cyber, that's our world, right? Like we're consistently worried about the uncertainty, the risk, and the emotional exposure. And really, when we talk about cybersecurity, it's no longer the Target breach days, right? Where like there was a big loser in that situation. In this situation, we can all be as great as we are on the tech side, but not focusing on the human side, then I think we're really just missing the point. And who isn't missing the point are the bad actors, right? They most certainly know where to focus their attention on. And frankly, it's not trying to take down the network from the technical side, it's trying to take down the network and get into everything from the people side. So this kind of sounds like a kind of a more sentimental approach, but really do want to say, especially for the students in the room and also the teachers, you know, you guys go out there and you kind of try to tackle this worldwide intense issue consistently that is dangerous in a lot of ways, not only from a information perspective, but even with the Ukraine war, what started the war? It was a cyber attack that started the war before the kinetic, forces came in. They took down their banks. They started attacking their critical infrastructure, started attacking their utilities, started trying to attack and take down their energy. And that creates the chaos that's needed for any kinetic movement. So when we're kind of keeping, and I'm not going to go too deep into these areas because I do appreciate the time and I really appreciate that I'm before lunch. But as we kind of continue down the path while you're here right today, learn. But I would really highly recommend, if you're in cybersecurity and you're not reading about the psychology of cyber hygiene and cybersecurity, that is an area that will make you way ahead of the curve. And if you're not teaching about the psychology of cybersecurity and cyber hygiene and organizational theories and organizational psychology, then you're only teaching about the tech parts, and that is not what the bad actors are focusing on. And when we're sharing with information, teaching people, we teach a lot about how we close things down and how we put the walls up and how we defend and how we offend. And that is all very important, but I think it's just as important to really, again, change the culture. A lot of what the intelligence community depends on in order for us to be proactive in how we approach cybersecurity attacks that are happening across the world, across our nation, across Indiana, and our local governments, is because people are talking about it, right? It's no longer the day where if it happens and you kind of square away into the corner and you hope nobody notices. Because one, people start noticing. I think people are in tune enough to know that if something's down, I mean, if you guys see that for some reason all the airports are down and it's not because of weather, who here thinks it's a cyber attack? Right? I mean, that's right. I mean, so we are constantly hearing this in the news, and it's definitely in our narrative of our society. So I think when it comes to and most certainly I've seen when it comes to being transparent about your attacks, sharing with the right people. I mean, I'm not saying sharing with everybody, that's dumb, but to share with the right people, trusted sources, the federal resources that are trying to collect this information so we can be more offensive and defensive in our aspects of cyber, or the cyber war we're in, is critical. And then taking risks. This is what I love about universities. In government, you're typically very much told to stay in your box. And in university academia world, you're very much told, learn from the box and get out of the box. And I love that. And that's one of the reasons why I knew Joel before as I was starting this, right? Because, and as he said, I came to him and I was like, I think I'm starting this, but the only way the council was going to be successful was we had not just had academic at the table, but had strong partnerships. We were ingraining the philosophies, the practicalness, and matching that in with the theories that are being taught and figuring out the middle ground between that. And so I would say being innovative. I tell organizations I'm talking, if you're comfortable with your cybersecurity posture, you're probably not at your best cybersecurity posture. Embracing your vendors and learning for vendors. I think that's critical. Our council, unlike a lot of other state councils, we invite vendors on our council. And the reason why is because typically government, and this is crazy, we're typically behind the times when it comes to tech. And so trying to get ahead of the cyber risk and the technology, The people who are doing that constantly are the ones making money off of it, right? So the people who are selling a product because it's being used and it's satisfying a need, there's something to always learn from that. And we have great vendors on our council that are not salesmen. They just want to come and say, this is what we're learning, and based on what you guys are seeing, what can we learn from that? So mutually beneficial relationships in government, they do exist. And we're very lucky that exists very strongly here in Indiana. And then regulation. When it comes to cybersecurity, we'll just be honest, it's coming, like at every level of every critical infrastructure. We're seeing the signs. When the pipeline, a Colonial Pipeline hack happened, we saw a quick turnaround on the federal side of mandating several cybersecurity things in a very short amount of time. Now, I will say the problem with regulation is typically the people who are making the regulation don't understand the ground operations. And that is a lot, again, of why sharing what you're learning in your classrooms, what you're teaching in your classrooms, what you're learning from your partners outside the classrooms, and sharing that with state partners is so critical, because I'm at the table with those regulators, right? Or I'm at the table with people who are at the table with the federal regulators. And if they're not, believe me, I'm the person definitely at saying, I appreciate the intent. No one's going to be able to do that, right? Or no one's going to do that in 6 months because they're a utility and they have to get cost recovery and it takes 1.5 years for them to do that. I mean, they have to understand that the only way they do is by us getting the information, the real ground truth, and then the theories or the possible solutions that you all may have in the academia world are so, I've taken so many good ideas that I've had with Joel or Scott, or through our reports, or through us working together, or just sitting and listening, and being able to take that to the people, the policymakers at those levels that make a difference on all of us. You know, as these regulations come down, as individuals, they're going to affect our tax rates. They're going to affect the rates we pay on our utility bills. They're going to affect our school rates. You will be paying for this one way or another. So help in the sense of sharing the information so that we can be as efficient and effective at the top of it, so that we are saving the most money and being the most secure. So I kind of, when I kind of see the council, and this is something I would definitely communicate to all of you as you continue on and hopefully drive your collaboration, and those people in your world, whether it's in your region, in your community, at your state, if you hopefully stay in Indiana, at the various locations in Indiana. If you leave Indiana, then definitely say you learned this from Indiana. But Theodore Roosevelt, kind of his perspective on how we were all, well, how we all are in about not being the critic who counts, but the man who points out how strong the man stumble is. The people in the arena, right? The people who are fighting every day, teaching every day, trying to figure out how can we do this better. You know, even though we may be failing, even though we may try to solve all the cyber world problems with our clinics and everything like that, that's still something. We're all in it together, and we have to remember that we are all inside the arena together. The bad actors are the ones that are outside. And so and that's one of the beauty of what I appreciate about the Alliance, and even before the Alliance became kind of more formalized, I would say that very early on in the council, we had universities sit at the same table and talking about, well, we have this program, well, we're going to go for that grant at Department of Labor or the National Science Foundation. Well, why don't we do it together and then have Chetrice write something on behalf of the governor? And I guarantee you, and I've talked to the federal people who give that money out at the federal level, and they're like, when it's part of a strategy to a larger extent and there's collaboration across universities, I've not seen us not get a grant. I've not seen us not get the money, because there's sustainability to that. There's a power to people working together, and then working together alongside the larger strategy of that state, or alongside figuring out, hey, we're serving our communities, we're serving our critical infrastructures, because the federal government knows those are our weakest points too. And so if you all are creating solutions for that, then they will most certainly notice. So Joel mentioned the Indiana Executive Council on Cybersecurity, and basically this council is 250 members all across the nation, all across the state, northern, central. Basically, it's not 30 white men in Indianapolis. That's basically what most councils and commissions are, right? And more importantly, it is not a council that just comes around and sits and talks about things. We do things. These 15 committees are just everything, like, in my world, because they're like kids to me, because they really just go and do great things. And it's not for the sake of, and the state, we like to control things. I'm not one of those people. I'm too lazy, but two, I mean, it really isn't the best way to work with people. We have to trust the people we're working with. If they're subject matter experts in finance and elections and energy, then I have to trust that they know their industry better than Chetrice does, and that is most certainly true all the time. So as we're working through these committees, every single one of these committees have deliverables every year that they complete on their own, volunteer. These are CEOs, these are CIOs, these are executive directors. I call them kind of the gray hair committee, only because I'm starting to get gray hair, not because they're gray. No offense, Scott. I'm not saying you have gray hair, but it really is, it's so important to know that there are people all over the state. And if you're interested, most certainly let me know, who are just working to do the right thing by people, because if we're all stronger, then even those organizations, the Chase Banks or the Regions Bank or the Citizens Energy, Duke Energy, they're all as strong too. So we have a website, in.gov/cyber. So I'm going to say that a few more times now. It's going to be annoying. So in.gov/cyber. On our website, we have some good tips on how to report a cybercrime, whether you're an organization or an individual going through identity theft, because cybercrime hits both sides, right? There's sector specific information. We have some training. We have some information about the various great programs of our university partners on our website, in.gov/cybersecurity. See? And if it looks like this, you're at the right place. And we have assessments that we worked really good. There's actually our scorecard, which I would say still is the best way to start any conversation in cybersecurity before you go down the deep assessment hole of 100 questions. It's 20 questions, 8th grade reading level, taken from NIST and Department of Defense focus areas. And yes, when we put those all together, they were still at 22nd grade reading level, meant for an IT person. But what we did was we translated that into 8th grade reading level for an operations person who is not a tech person. It is our most downloaded item on our whole website, for good reason. So that's found under Assess Yourself. They wouldn't let me say assess yourself before you wreck yourself. I still wish I could do it. We have best practices. We have things about cyber insurance, because most certainly, to Scott's point, there has been a shift in insurance, and it's a bit of a confusing area for a lot of people, and it's changing on a consistent basis. So we have a legal insurance team led by our Attorney General's office, several law firms in Indiana, who literally just get together, even though they're competing partners, and they sit there and figure out what can we be telling people and helping people in understanding the law, cyber law and insurance. We have some great resources on cyber threat sharing, an emergency manager toolkit, of course, workforce development. And this emergency manager cybersecurity toolkit, we always talk a lot about how we protect ourselves and how, the things to detect and mitigate and those kind of things. But we can't forget the response is usually what messes everybody up, right? The bad day that no one prepared for, and no one knows what to do. And now what was a gushing wound is now just like a deathbed for a lot of these organizations. So what can we do to provide that? So we provide them a cyber incident response plan. And everything that you see on this website was created by the council, or pointed to by the council, because their organizations already have something. I'm not a believer of recreating the wheel. And I am a believer in, let's point out the good stuff we have here in Indiana or nationally. There's some really great national resources too, that people should know about. Other deliverables, in addition to the scorecard and the emergency manager's toolkit, we have a really great toolkit. It's called Healthcare Cyber in a Box. That whole 2020 thing happened, and we had that whole pandemic thing happen. But what happened with that was there was almost an overload of information on how to secure your system, secure PII. Everybody went working from home. There was an overload of information on how to do that and work better from home. A lot of information from HIPAA. And so one of the things that our healthcare committee, so this was done by IU Health and Parkview and done by a variety of health associations, they basically collected all those and put it in something digestible that was going to be easy to understand for the small provider who will never hire a CIO, right? They're never going to hire a security officer, but they have an office manager who also has the HIPAA, person, who's also the privacy person, the cyber person, and all that. So how can we put that in something that's manageable and usable? Energy sector, as well, public awareness outreach consistently. We have social media at Indiana Cyber Hub. You can find those links at in.gov/cyber. And then something that's near and dear to my heart, most certainly, is local government. So as we heard from Scott, we're doing some great things at the state with regards to providing local government free cybersecurity training, providing them free assessments with our partners, IU and Purdue, and being able to truly make a difference. Federal government is giving us millions of dollars, and that's great, but it really doesn't matter if we can't get it in the hands of local governments and have them adopt it, right? They all say yes, and they say yes to the tools, yes to cybersecurity training, but do they actually do it, to actually push it out? Because if they're not doing that last piece, none of it really matters, right? It just looks good, but that doesn't really matter to me. I don't care how it looks. I want to know that it's actually doing something and it's actually teaching something. Is it solving the problem of the resources that are lacking in our local governments? And then more importantly, to full circle, of course, to the part of focusing on the human factor of it, something that's unique to Indiana that no other state's been able to get as close as we have in local governments. A lot of states are doing the assessment programs, but I would have to say the fact that our two universities have worked really hard on figuring out how do we pull from all those assessments out there and say, what does really truly matter operationally, right? What can we actually give them that can actually benefit quickly and secure them quickly? But in addition to that, one of the really important pilot programs that CyberTap and IU has been a great assistance with, and Ivy Tech has been going in and talking with the department heads and understanding them in their very nature, right? So a clerk, and this is a true story, a clerk there for 30 some years was part of developing that whole office, right? Elected, right? So you're dealing with the problem that you have the commissioners that are the CEO, and you may or may not have an IT person, but every department head, especially the elected ones, are also CEOs, right? So where we fell significantly when it comes to local government, which is why the NIST standard or the CIS governance template, they don't work, is because you already have lacking in the resources and the cybersecurity background at the top. But even if they say, you know what, we're going to push down those policies, we're going to make everybody change their passwords, or we're going to do cybersecurity training, or we're going to expect people to do their phishing, right? And we expect all our department heads to support us in that, like what organizations typically do. In local government, we will have where this clerk, 30 some years in local government, she's like, I don't care what the county was doing. I don't care what their IT person's doing. I'm in charge of my system and my 5 people, and I don't have time for any of that. And that is the real world. That is why local government is so weak. So I sit there and we're like, okay. And she's like, I don't even know why I'm sitting with you. I'm really annoyed that I'm sitting with you. So good thing I have a fantastic personality. We were laughing by the end of it, but I'm like, okay, well, let me listen to you. I could have sat there and been a normal state person, been like, well, but this is how you're wrong, and this is what you should be doing. And if you cared about your people, you would be doing this, this, and this. Not the approach you should take with people. Again, the psychology. So instead, I sat and listened. And I listened about her getting rid of one of her key people, one of her admins actually on her system. And somebody followed them. It was like a lot of drama. So, I mean, got some real good dirt in that county. I know things about brothers, and it's bizarre. So she goes about this, and I'm like, okay. And so we're wrapping up our thing, and I was like, hey, so listen, do you know when you told the HR that that person was fired and that other person left, do you know if they tell the IT person so that they disable their accounts? And she's like, well, yeah, that's what they're supposed to do. I said, but do you know if they do it? And she's like, well, no, I don't know that they do it. I said, well, I would suggest checking that. She calls me 45 minutes later on my cell phone, and she's like, oh my gosh, not only have they not been doing that, but that not only have they not been doing it, but she still has super admin to my whole system. And 5 other people who have left in a bad way politically have rights to that system. And nobody, and so it went to that. And I was like, okay, so that process of making sure your IT disables those accounts and you review your users and on a regular basis to make sure there's the things. She's like, yes, I'm going to do that. I said, that's cybersecurity. And she's like, oh. So, and now she's my biggest advocate in that county. Like, she's like, oh, that is my job. I want to know my backups. I want you to test my backups. That's cybersecurity. I want to be part of the cyber incident response plan. I want to be part of the exercises. That's cybersecurity. So every little bit counts, and that stuff matters to the operations people, the department heads. But we would have ever found that out. We would have never made that connection if I hadn't sat with her and understood her and what she cared about in her department. So as we talk about governance and what it should be at the top level, know that that is not the reality, especially when it comes to complicated structures like local government. So as we're trying to find those solutions and creative, how are we getting to the human side of local government? How are we talking to those department heads, understanding that Parks and Rec has 50 people come in and out of their departments that are typically teenagers during the summer, but have access to their systems? How are you locking those down, right? Or understanding that fire chiefs are not going to have 60 volunteer firefighter different user things. They're just never going to be okay with that. They're going to only have one computer that everybody uses that makes every cyber person cringe, right? But, and true story, fire chief, he was like, I'm just not doing that. I'm like, I get it. You're not going to do it. That's a pain in the ass. Absolutely. Why would we make you do that? I mean, yes, that's a best practice. Yes, you should do that. But I understand. I work with firefighters. They're never going to understand. They're going to be focusing on that and not on the firefighting. I understand. I was like, but can I guess the password of that computer? And he's like, what do you mean? I said, can I guess your password? Yeah. Does it have ladder in it? Is it have something about the number of your fire station or a street name? Okay, so maybe we should change the password. Okay, well, how about we make a game? I know they have a lot of inside jokes. Every 30 days, pick the fun inside joke, change the A's to ats and add some numbers to it, and they all know it. Somebody wins out something, and he's like, oh my God, they would love that. And he does that now. They have a jar with absolutely probably inappropriate jokes where HR should not go to it. But every 90 days, they pick a winner, and now that's being changed every 90 days. So even an old volunteer can't come on and get into their system. Those are the things, again, would have never figured that out, but that is effective cybersecurity for that fire chief. So just remember that as you guys continue down the path of figuring out all the solutions. Other things that are coming soon, healthcare cyber in a box 2.0, because we can always improve. A privacy toolkit, we're updating our manager toolkit. We have some policy studies. We're looking at PII and now how can we better share information and maturity of that. So here's my information. Look at that, you finished a few minutes early, like it never happens. So thank you all so much. Appreciate everything you guys do.
Chetrice, thank you so much.